Good evening and welcome to our panel discussion. I'm pleased to inform you that we have with us today Ms. Shelli Brunswick, Chief Operating Officer from Space Foundation. We also have with us another panelist, Mr. Elia Montanari, Head of Management and Control from European Space Agency. Today, we're going to have a panel discussion on the topic which we have derived on is driving space economy growth through capability development and impact of new technologies. So let's start with Ms. Shelli. Ms. Shelli, you're looking very beautiful with your red dress. Please introduce yourself and tell us a brief of your role.
Well, thank you so much, Melvin. It's an honor to be here with you, and I'm excited to be part of this wonderful panel, and congratulations to you and Oman for your first virtual summit.
Thank you, ma'am.
As you mentioned, I'm Shelli Brunswick. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at the Space Foundation, and many people will know the Space Foundation for our annual Space Symposium that we conduct every year in Colorado Springs. And with COVID, we have moved to an online product called 365. But the other part I want to share with you is I'm also the executive leader for our Center for Innovation and Education. And that's really about workforce development and economic opportunity as it relates to the growing space economy. So I really look forward to our panel discussion today about the space and space technology. So thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Elia, please, a small introduction about yourself and a brief about your role.
Well, thank you very much, Melwin. It's a pleasure to be here. I also congratulate you on this incredible event. It's really articulated and very well structured. So, well, thanks for being here. My role at the agency, I will summarize with a few words, is basically I count people and money, as the control and management talks about in my title. And, it's a little bit of a joke, but the truth is that thanks to this capability or skills, I'm actually delivering a number of things that is obviously the financial control, but also the ACE Investor Forum. So we match companies, in particular startup, with investors to generate what is the new space. And I also count what are the benefits of this process of the institution priming money that actually give to the wider economy. And for that, I deliver the socioeconomic impact analysis. And last but not least, and I thank you also a lot for the other invitation to the next event, I'm the CEO of Space Brains, that is a space education foundation. But I will not dwell too much on this other opportunity, because today we are here as, talking about, what the title of the opportunity is here.
Thank you, Elia. Okay, so let's dive into some questions. One of the questions which probably comes to my mind is, what is the space economy and what does it include?
Well, I'll start. How we look at the space economy at the Space Foundation is it's a $424 billion economy, and it includes 16 different sectors. And we'll talk more about that in a minute, but that $424 billion economy is expected to grow $1 to $3 trillion in the next 10 to 20 years. Bank of America just came out with an analysis on Sunday saying they anticipate by 2030, the global space economy will be $1.4 trillion, which is, as you can imagine, great economic opportunity. It's growth. The other part I want to highlight, and I can identify it for the US, is of that economy, 80% in the US is commercial. Only 20% is government. And we see as time goes on, the government will remain steady at their amount, but the commercial will continue to increase exponentially with entrepreneurs and new innovative ideas coming to marketplace. So that's how we snapshot the global space economy and how it looks here in the United States.
Perfect. Elia?
Yeah, this is amazing. I cannot add much to this analysis. What I do follow, in fact, and in particular, what I praise is this vocation now of the new space economy. Because there has been, and we'll probably talk even a bit more about that, there is what used to be called the old space economy, where you find a typical satellite operator or launcher, for example. Now we are seeing this has been disrupted completely by new business models. And the space economy goes even beyond that. So today, and in particular in my area where I work, we look a lot at the applications of the space. Application, we're really talking about the data universe of space. Maybe space is the largest generator of data already now and definitely in the future, because you take picture from space, you exchange data from space, and obviously positioning. So you basically stack the 3 layers, so you have an incredible thing. Maybe an anecdote, and I try to be as fast as possible, but the point is that many people don't even realize, including myself. I've been working for the European Space Agency for the last 15 years. And in 2016, because I'm also, I like to trade the stock exchange, I couldn't place a few orders. And I couldn't tell, there was absolutely no explanation for that. So you call your broker, you do these things and so on and so forth. So finally, we discovered that one of the GPS satellites was decommissioned. And that GPS satellite times every single transaction in the stock exchange for the banking transaction and for the telecommunication tower of the mobiles. So this is something that kind of hit me so hard, and I thought, how is that possible? And honestly, the only network that is now truly global is the American GPS. GLONASS, the Russian system of satellite navigation, claims to be also global. But this is something that many people, it goes beyond, let's say, I want to go from A to B, right? It's really go, into your pocket. It goes into everything that you do into your daily communication. And that's really hit me really, really hard. And it's kind of now, it's become my single one example to say, what is the space economy today? This is it.
Okay, thank you for that. My next question would be, what is the value of space to life on Earth? Yes, Elia. Yes, Shelli, sorry.
Thank you. Well, I think Elia spoke a little bit about it, and we look at that $424 billion space economy as 16 different sectors. Many people, when they think about the space economy, they're thinking it's launch vehicles or astronauts. But in reality, the space economy is really big agriculture, transportation, telecommunications, finance, public safety, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, education, government, and so much more. So that is where you're seeing that entrepreneurship and innovation here in the United States, but around the world. There are innovation centers in Europe, in the Middle East, and Africa, and Asia. So innovation and entrepreneurship and unlocking that innovation is what the space economy really is. The astronauts and launch vehicles is a small part. And as Elia spoke, is the GPS, which was a free service provided by the US government, has unlocked $1.4 trillion in value to our economy. So how you equate that is, that was something that was created for government use that became commercialized. And so when you look at the NASA Technology Transfer Office or other institutes like ESA that have space technology that's available to commercialize, look at GPS as an example of when we unlock that space technology, we're going to be able to exponentially grow our economy and benefit everyone here on Earth.
Thank you. Honestly, I didn't myself know that there are so many other sectors in it. Elia,
No, it's so big. I want to complement straight away. In fact, some of the examples is that you may kind of pass by very easily. Kind of, let's take Uber, right? That use space technology, because without GPS, the two people, the provider, that is the taxi driver, and the customer cannot meet. Without that, this is a unicorn, okay? This has already generated this as a unicorn. Airbnb, also uses this sort of technology to trace, to give you a recommendation, to tell you what is the next thing that you are going to like. Also Amazon deliveries, they do a huge amount of, they hinge a lot on this thing, in particular for the last mile delivery. And I will also mention another one that is maybe a bit more jokey, but also Tinder. Nowadays finding a partner online is not such a peculiar thing, another unicorn, and all this stack up to a huge value, first of all, commercial value, and on top it becomes a template for future value chains. And in particular, we are thinking telecommunication has been a very, very powerful model until yesterday. Let's say for the classic satellite operator like SES, Eutelsat, Intelsat, the business model is becoming a little bit aged. But on the other hand, there are new business models that are coming along. For example, ubiquitous telecommunications through space, like Starlink, the constellation that Elon Musk is implementing. So new business model will come along and will open new market and will generate even more value. I stop here. Obviously, there is a little bit like the problem child, that is Earth observation, that so far has not, let's say, achieve what what it was meant to do, but we see more and more also at in Europe with the Sentinels constellation and stuff like that. We see more and more very good examples of application of the Earth observation element. So picture from space towards Earth. Yeah.
Our first question was on economy, then life in today's world. Because of the COVID-19. Everything is impacted. So how has COVID-19 impacted the space economy?
I'll jump in. In general, we've seen the space economy has been very resilient. You're looking at, as you mentioned, Starlink, which is SpaceX, their internet satellite platform, but you're also seeing OneWeb and Amazon also doing that. We're seeing Rocket Lab go into Virginia to do launches once a month, but eventually maybe even once a week. So the space economy has been very resilient. The manufacturing of the space economy has been very resilient. We've seen 3 Mars launches this year, one from the UAE, China, and the US. And you saw recently SpaceX launch American astronauts back into space from American soil. So the space industry is resilient. We do have job openings, and the reason we're looking at that is because the space industry is a lot of business to business and business to government, and those have been resilient during COVID. The area of the economy that has suffered the most has been business to the consumer, such as restaurants, retail. So that's where you're seeing impacts to the economy and why there's a divergence between what's happening with the space and aerospace economy, minus airplanes, and what's happening with the consumer. So it's still very robust and resilient here in the US and again, many other locations around the world with the launch of the Mars probes from the UAE and China.
Okay. Elia, anything you want to add?
Yes, it's very complete picture. Yes, and I will add, by the way, that also smaller ticket size. Well, let's say it as well. SpaceX, I think, recently raised $250 million in debt, just showing that there is appetite for investment into space when the business proposition is good, like the one of SpaceX and the Starlink Association, making SpaceX to an estimated value of $40 billion. I mean, that's not even a unicorn. It's I don't know how to call it, a megacorn in financial terms. But I also want to look at the smaller ticket size, and often I deal with the startups, in particular when we take them to the ACE Investor Forum, because that's, you can say, yeah, maybe we are looking at the very top part, and this obviously has been very successful. In reality, even the smaller part is still resilient. And in fact, we have been seeing a constellation like SAR, this is synthetic aperture radar, is part of the taking picture from space into Earth. They have very good property because you can take very precise picture and then apply change detection. One thing that we didn't talk about, that for example, space apply many different subjects into what they do. So if you have a data, you need AI in order to analyze it. So we had a company called ISI, a constellation that is Finnish American by now. Because of this investment, they raised around $87 million. So a very important raise also. Lilium Aviation, a German company that raised $230 million. This is actually VTOL, so vertical takeoff and landing type of taxis that use space technology in their thing. So also another thing for technology transfer and stuff like that. And other things like InsurTech, Descartes Underwriting for France raised another 15 million. And maybe even things that are more towards, let's say, doing good and doing well, like clean energy. We have a Swiss company that just raised around 50 million euro, both in grant and equity. And what do? They have very clever technology, practically, where they concentrate the solar energy into a very small chip that then is converted into electricity. This has two benefits. You can place this thing into a very wide area. You can still grow vegetables, whatever you want underneath. And on top, you even generate energy. This is basically we call it in Italian, the Columbus egg, because it's a very clever idea, how to stand an egg. Practically, there is a boiled egg, you just need to crash it a little bit and then it stands because it's clever. So it allows, for example, poor countries to both make their agriculture food, so basically their food and livelihood, and on top even have energy to advance themselves, for example, studying at night, raising kids, and doing all the things that you can do with electricity.
All right, Elia. See, I heard million, then I heard billion, and then I heard trillion. So where are the space economy's greatest growth opportunities? Ma'am, Shelli?
Well, wonderful. I think there's a lot of great opportunity, as we've shared. Neither of us are talking about the government spending side of it. So yes, there are important things the government does by investing, such as when they invested in GPS, or NASA is investing with partners around the world on Artemis, going to the moon and onto Mars. But in reality, the biggest growth opportunities are going to be in that innovation and entrepreneurship area, where we can take that technology and commercialize it. So a number of great ideas about agriculture, going to Mars, we're going to have to generate energy. We have to store energy in a different way than we do it now. We have to grow food in an austere condition. We have to create water. We have to have telemedicine on Mars. So all these things that we look at that we're going to go to Mars and do, we have to do that here on Earth as well. And that's going to benefit all of us here on Earth as individuals, but it's also going to benefit the economy. It's going to create great paying jobs, and it's going to allow for workforce development and economic opportunity to flourish. So we see the biggest growth is going to be on that commercial side, commercializing space applications. The Space Foundation does an annual award, and it's called our Space Technology Hall of Fame. And every year we recognize technologies that have benefited us here on Earth that came from space. And this year we're identified 3 technologies that benefited us this year because of COVID. And that's telemedicine, telecommunications, and teleconferencing. All came from space technology, and they're all benefiting almost all of us, especially on this teleconference today, because of space technology. So that's the biggest growth, and I'm sure my partner here will agree with that. So I'll turn it over to him.
Yes, it's no, absolutely, and it's telecommunication has been a very, very strong pioneer in the commercial side of things. So when we talk about telecommunication from space, we are thinking about very clearly television, for example, and everything that goes with it, because the business model, what are you selling through the television? It's adverts, and it's marketing, is the thing, and the model will increase more and more with the Internet 2.0. that allows the Amazon and the many other people that provide customer value for products and services to deliver even more and to even more remote areas. Africa will be open to that very soon. And that's an amazing perspective. India and Pakistan more and more. And even for example, South America that has very remote area. And we don't even have to go to, let's say, what is called development world. Even in Italy, which I'm originally from, it's requires this sort of connectivity to be competitive. Right now, I will throw also another thing, by the way, that is very fascinating for me, because at the core of my academic, preparation, I'm a chemical engineer, and that's fascinating, and that's probably one of the things that kind of brings you into the inspiration factor of space. And I will quote now Goldman Sachs, that in a report, and I believe it was early last year, stated that the first trillionaire will be made in space. Why? Because they're looking now, this is a bank, obviously, Goldman Sachs, and they're looking at asteroid mining. In particular, here in Europe, there is already a legal framework. This is the legal framework that has been jotted down by Luxembourg. It has been accepted by a number of countries, including the UAE, and it started thinking about how to exploit space resources. And what is interesting about the space resources? I mean, obviously you need to see it in a global way, but for example, an asteroid could contain trillions in value of gold. So if you're capable to go up there and to bring it back down, it's going to generate to this whoever person it is, or corporate or consortium, a very, very large value. Now, and this is not the end of it. Of course, the capability to go to an asteroid and live with the load will also give you the capability to go onto an asteroid and maybe go to the next asteroid, or probably go to Mars and hop onto another planet after you've developed further technology. And this is really, in my opinion, what space is about, the sort of Argonaut travels, the voyage. And that's probably something that really got me into space, despite the fact I'm not a space engineer at all.
Okay, Elia. So now, whenever there are great opportunities and options for growth, there also comes underlining challenges to the sustainability. So what are the points for the sustainability of the space economy?
That is an excellent question, because as you said, there's a wonderful future for us, but we see that there's three main challenges to accomplishing that. And that's a workforce shortage, a skills deficit, and an innovation gap. What we look at is, here in the United States, our workforce is aging. So we have a lot of individuals that are in the 50s and 60s that are starting to retire, not just from NASA, but even from manufacturing jobs. So the supply chain. So we see that workforce shortage. And we see how we need to fill those gaps is with underserved communities. So women, African Americans, Hispanics, veterans, individuals who have not necessarily considered the space as a career opportunity. When I talk about the skills deficit, what we're seeing in the US, and you can see it especially during COVID, I have open jobs right now in the space community, and I have unemployed workers, but I have a skills deficit. There's a mismatch. And Elia highlighted that data analytics is one of the #1 things we need in the space industry. And you don't need a college degree to do that. You can go and get a certificate program. And right now during COVID, there are companies that are offering that training online for free. So you can come out of COVID with a different job with the right skills for this future space economy. And then again, the third challenge I see, as we've talked earlier, is that innovation gap and the entrepreneurial spirit. There are thousands of patents just at NASA alone, not including all the other labs in the US, and I'm sure in ESA and elsewhere around the world, that are waiting to be commercialized. That next GPS product that will add $1.4 trillion to the economy. We're ready to unlock that innovation and entrepreneurship. So we're passionate about inspiring entrepreneurship in adults, especially in those underserved communities in America, but also in high school and junior high. We have to create that space entrepreneurial spirit as young as possible in our kids so that they grow up wanting to be entrepreneurs, wanting to be problem solvers, and taking that technology and bringing it to market.
Good to know. Mr. Elia, you want to
Yeah,
add?
amen to that. Absolutely, it's a challenge. It's and often it's because there is also perception. Maybe we are not so good. I think maybe space is not so good to show all these opportunities, and that one of the maybe also the gaps. In fact, for that kind of is a little bit the bottleneck that hampers the the explosion of this type of economy, because the opportunities are there. The opportunities are there for all sorts of skills, and by the way, I want to commend the fact that, for example, we are here and we are talking about space in with such a hype, because Crew Dragon has sent astronauts from American soil. So, and SpaceX managed to do that in a very, very sleek way. You don't have to sit anymore in a space capsule looking like, a movie from the 1930s. So now you have touch screens, you don't have the Michelin Man, you have, very cool spacesuits. And this is where we need to go to. We need also to sell the idea of space as something cool, as something clever, as something reachable. So that's obviously the implication. I want also to basically focus the attention laterally to something else. What all this space is going to take us. There are actually concerns, for example, that all these launches that are forecasted for the future because of not only because of SpaceX, many others want to have a very frequent launch, will actually bring, for example, to space, to astronomical observation, or even maybe nightlife. It is so. Today, Starlink is working on a darker satellite because the reflection that the satellite shows during the night is kind of confusing the night phone, for example. The other thing that is not very well known is, for example, that the solid fuel that is used in the rockets, and that's where I take out my my chemical engineer knowledge, is mostly made by aluminum. And this aluminum particle, once the rocket is fired and goes up, stays in the atmosphere for 3 to 4 years. Why? Because they are very, very, very fine particles, and this will contribute at some point in time to the depletion of the ozone. And with all these satellites, you type Kessler syndrome on YouTube, and you will see a nice visualization of that, just to see how busy. I mean, there is a lot of space in space, but how busy is the low Earth orbit, and how busy is going to become. By the way, requiring more and more services, because the more busy it is, the more collision avoidance system you will need, and the more services or more debris collection services is gonna require. So yes, there are challenges, but definitely what Shelli has pointed out is one of the key one, definitely.
Okay.
Education.
Okay. So let's say a common man like me would like to know what kind of skills are actually required, in short, like, what are the skills required in your opinion?
There's a place for everyone in the space economy. So we've talked about a variety of jobs, from being an astronaut and rocket scientist to manufacturing and data analytics, which requires a certificate, or you could have an apprenticeship program. We need welders and electricians. You talked about SpaceX suits. SpaceX and Blue Origin have hired fashion designers. Because if you're going to do space tourism, we're not wearing those NASA orange suits. We're going to wear something sleek and cool so we look good in our selfies, right? So they're in that space economy now. We've democratized space. It's no longer for a government, which it was when I entered the space sector in the Air Force 30 years ago, which I'm dating myself. It was really, you were in the government and you did activities related to space in the government. The pendulum has completely shifted. It is now commercial and it is open to all skill sets. I am not, I am not a STEM expert myself. I am a business manager. I have an MBA. And so again, as space has become commercialized and you have commercial and organizations, you need business skills, you need financial management, you need strategic communication, you need welders and electricians and food service. Who's going to feed your workforce? I'll share one example. I went to Kennedy Space Center and it has all kinds of businesses going in. Obviously, Blue Origin's going in, OneWeb, all kinds of great launch facilities or users of launch facilities. But the one challenge that I noticed they did not have was food. There was no restaurants within 30 minutes of all those companies. So if you're working there for year after year, you're having to bring your own brown bag in. So obviously, when we talk about the space economy, you have to think of it as economic opportunity and development, because it's not in isolation where you're just going to build a facility and you're going to have workers and you're going to bring technology forward. That entire ecosystem of food service, janitorial, transportation, finance, marketing, business, we need all those skills. And so a big part of what we have to do is highlight to our workforce, the kids and the current adults, that we can help you either get reskilled into one of these skill sets that are needed, and those are higher paying jobs, or we need to go into our school systems and highlight the careers that are going to be available in the next 10 to 20 years as the space economy grows to $3 trillion. So it's really up to Elia and myself and others like us and the UAE Space Agency and yourself putting on this wonderful conference to highlight to everyone that we have a place for you in space and there is a job and we can help you find it, whether you want to graduate high school and have a certificate or you want to become an astronaut.
Is there an age for that, ma'am?
To be an astronaut, there's no age now with Richard Branson and Elon Musk. You just have to have a checkbook.
Okay, I have one. So, Mr. Elia, you want to add a little bit on the skills?
That's an interesting. I just want to say something before going to that subject, if I remember to go back to that. At some point in time, astronauts were flying, I don't remember how far in the past. It was there was some gentleman that would flew to the International Space Station and paid a couple of $1 million. Okay. And that was, let's say, the price ticket, right? And now, as we are looking, we're talking about Virgin Galactic giving you the experience of space for $250,000. So the experience of space, you go up, you're weightless, you see the curvature of the Earth and the sky black, okay? And the trick that I play when I'm in conferences or when you get feedback automatically, hopefully there are some people listening that will tell me is practically who is prepared to spend 100,000, who is prepared to spend 50K, who is prepared to spend 10K. And I can tell you at 10K, there is a jump. So it becomes real space tourism and not an elite market anymore. At 10K, there will be the people that say, I always wanted to do that. At 10K or lower, of course, because they have a disposable income, particularly in the richer country, where this market will become very, very, very profitable. And on top, you can add the fact that, for example, Virgin Galactic is already thinking, and not only, I'm talking about Virgin Galactic, I'm a bit more familiar with their business model, to fly from point to point. Thinking, for example, to fly from Texas or California, where they are now, to Italy, to UAE, where they already have an agreement in place to make flights point to point, having the experience of space. And to fly, for example, from US to Italy, it doesn't take 12 hours. It takes 2 hours. And it already kind of changed a little bit the thing. If somebody can spend 10K, you generate enough critical mass in order to lower the price point to that level, the market will be released and space theorems will be a reality. Then coming back again to what does it take to be in space, I really want to stress again, and Shelli, thanks for saying that, entrepreneurship. That's really the thing that is needed. The resilience, you go in and you say, why not actually exploiting this thing and transfer it from space to terrestrial? Velcro is a very old example, but I want to use it. It was invented by NASA, and then it was used for shoes, for clothing, for many other applications, for bags and so on. So now it's unthinkable to go back and say, but Velcro was invented. Yeah, we still use it. We still use very specific application of Velcro, and we did, for example, in the solar orbiter that launched in February this year. It will go very close to the sun and has a thing attached with Velcro. Entrepreneurship, and the other way around, because, for example, nowadays there are technologies that is like software technologies and gadget technologies like IoT, Internet of Things. Yes, nowadays, in particular in remote location, having devices that have GPS tracking, sat-nav tracking in general, telecommunication opportunities at very low power is something that you can do with a very low skill technologies. And yes, you need obviously the connection, but this is something that can be done practically at a very, very young age with the entrepreneurship spirit, though, with the idea that, yes, I can be powerful enough to make a connection to outer space. And this is the dream we want to sell.
Perfect. So first of all, I would also like to congratulate my colleagues from space. Today, this is the week for the World Space Week. And that's how our event was placed during these dates by Ms. Shelli advised us that, the 4th to the 10th October, you'll celebrate the World Space Week. So we decided to place our event between this week. So first of all, congratulations and all the best for you all. So you would like to say something on the World Space Week on that note, ma'am?
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to take credit for World Space Week, but it's actually the United Nations gets to take credit for that. But it is something we celebrate around the world, and we in the US are celebrating it. The Space Foundation, if you go to our website, we have several activities going on with Audience with an Astronaut. Yesterday, we had the United States drone soccer going on, which again, you're only able to do that with space technology. But ESA is doing some wonderful activities in the Middle East. There's some activities going on in Africa. So if you Google World Space Week, you'll be able to go to the calendar of activities. So I'm just thrilled, Melvin, that this conference was scheduled during World Space Week, and we can highlight the great things the world is doing, but the great things you're doing in Oman and how you're part of the fabric of the space economy. So thank you.
All right. Elia, a quick few words.
I don't have anything else to add. This is this is the World Space Week. Go online, get involved. There are plenty of things. Also, Space Foundation has an educational side, like the European Space Agency and NASA. There are a lot of gadgets you can do with your children. Watch videos, get involved, and find the passion, because that's really what it is about. Find a little bit of passion, fly a thing, make one of these bottle rockets, and launch it like 10 meters high, or maybe if you have the skills, even more evolved and dangerous stuff. But be careful with that, and yes, experiment, because that's what it's all about. And I want to add one thing. When I came to the European Space Agency 15 years ago, SpaceX was nowhere, absolutely nowhere. There were jokes around here. And I was looking at them, and every 3 months, they were blowing up a rocket. But every 3 months, so they were experimenting. And it was really that experimentation and pushing forward, knowing that they were improving, that got them there. So now, practically, the cost per kilogram of SpaceX is even cheaper than China. Practically, it's there is no competition whatsoever. So they are the very top of their games, and everybody chasing. 15 years ago, they were nowhere.
I agree. I mean, even for us, for example, the virtual event, this is our first experience. So it's learning curve, you learn. Yeah, that's great. So before we go from there, you told me earlier that from US to Italy, it would take 2 hours, correct? So how long will it take from where you are to come to Oman for maybe our next event live?
It will take 30 minutes with the spaceport, with one of these Virgin Galactic thing. 30 minutes, maybe with the approach and stuff, maybe a full hour. Instead of, I believe, is maybe a 10 hours flight to Oman today from London to Muscat. Is that correct?
I think approximately, yes. I
Yeah.
think 2 hours. Give or take 8 hours, yeah. So,
Well, I
Mich-
look forward to the 1 hour flight from the US to Oman, but until then, I do look forward to being with you in person next year, and we'll be able to celebrate World Space Week together in Oman.
yes, and by the way, I love spaghetti, so I will definitely treat you for spaghetti bolognese.
Oh, nice.
And with
I'm
some
invited.
with some Omani delicacies, we've got some really good delicacies, yeah?
Yes, no, I'm looking forward as well. There are the culture. It's a very interesting culture. During COVID, by the way, talking about pushing yourself forward, I've taught myself the Arabic alphabet, and now I can also speak some Arabic. It's not conversational yet, but probably by that time I will be also conversational. And it's a very interesting endeavor, and I really believe that this endeavor has to continue, in particular by strengthening this sort of global space value chain, because it's in the collaboration and the transfer of technology. So, for example, just to give a very brief example, Italy and US, by the way, US has collaborated very strongly with UAE for the Mars probe. Italy has done a lot also in UAE. So Middle East is I think is a trove of treasure that can find opportunities from our technology advancement, so to say, in order also to advance yourself and further opportunities.
Yeah, so we had Sindabad and Ibn Battuta from this part of the world. I'm sure we'll find someone to go to space too.
Excellent.
From this part of the world. Thank you very much. It was a great time, and hope to catch you guys next time in Oman live. Okay?
Wonderful.
My pleasure. Shukran.
Shukran. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, ma'am. Take care. Bye bye. Thank you, sir. Bye.
Masalam.
Assalamu. Yes, you lunch your